Hey, hi, welcome to the stream today. We're live again on the Traders Journal. So I'm here every Wednesday evening UK time. And today we're going to talk about 5 steps to managing fear and doubt in your trading. So fear and doubt are the number one killers of trading. Have you ever, I'm sure you have, sat at your computer, you're starting a new session, you're excited for the trading, the results that you could get, you're starting fresh today, all the mistakes from yesterday are done, and you see your setup, you're kind of like, I'm getting ready to take the trade, and suddenly the candle you normally enter and just, you think it doesn't look right, that wick's a little bit bigger than I normally expect, and then you start feeling that, oh no, I'm not sure, then you might look for another time frame, go down to a lower time frame, see what's happening there. But there it's actually crossed the 200 MA or something else has happened there, and you're like, that doesn't support what my trade entry says I should do. So you go back. Maybe the trend line suddenly doesn't look right. You move it a little bit. There's suddenly 3 different options. Suddenly you've got 4 trend lines on your chart. Then you're adding a new indicator. MACD you heard was good. You've never used it before, but maybe that will support your trade. And before you know it, you're completely overwhelmed and the trade runs away from you. Or maybe you still have the kind of impulse to just press the button and get into the trade, but as soon as it moves a couple of pips against you, you freak out and you're out of the trade, and then it runs away and you've missed out on a great trade. And again, you're like, okay, I've ruined the day again, my trading hasn't worked out. So fear and doubt can really rule your trading. It can wreck your trading. And today we're going to look at the 5-step process. So it's one process with 5 steps in it to help you start managing that fear and doubt today. You can start managing it immediately so that you can trade in spite of having that fear and doubt. So before we kick off, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Marisa. I'm a Forex trader and I'm a performance coach with CTI. So I work one-to-one with traders to help them overcome obstacles and things standing in their way from becoming profitable. And I'm very familiar with fear and doubt because out of all the errors and mistakes you can make in trading, for me, fear and doubt was the biggest one, and it took me the longest to kind of get control of it. And something that kept me unprofitable for a very long time was that I missed all my good trades because I hesitated and I became fearful. And some of it was fearful that this trade wouldn't work out, that it would be a loss. Sometimes it felt like I just suddenly wasn't sure if this was the right candle. What did my rules say? It was very hard to figure out what triggered my fear and my doubt, but it really ruled my trading. So I like this process. It works. It's simple. And I'm excited to take you through it. So let's kick off, get started. Before we dive into the actual steps, many traders, I think, misunderstand fear and doubt because we think that we can just stop it so that we can get rid of fear and doubt completely. And it's actually incorrect. Over time, eventually, it will lose its power. It's a bit like I've got a real fear of snakes. If I saw a snake on a screen, just on a video, I would have that jolt of fear. I could feel it, the fear and the adrenaline. And it wasn't even in the room, it was on a TV screen. And now I don't have a problem seeing snakes on a TV screen. The impact it's really lost its power. Do I want to see one in real life? No, I'd get very scared. But I don't have that. The power of it has dissipated, and that's just with time. I didn't do anything for that. And the more you trade in a positive way and trade through fear, the more it's going to lose its power. But will fear ever totally disappear? It's very unlikely. You need to just manage it. And I think that's the difference between unprofitable traders and profitable traders is we just manage the fear. Now, to understand why fear will never ever go away completely, but it will lose its power the longer you trade, is that fear is really important for us as humans. We are biological, ultimately animals. Okay, we're very sophisticated now, but we've got things in our biology that were really helpful for us when we were cavemen. And actually, the fear response is really helpful for us today as well. It keeps us alive. You don't want to get rid of fear, and you actually can't. It's embedded within us. And what you have in your brain is you've got an emotional brain and you've got a logical brain. And fear lives in the emotional brain. So back in the day, if you were in a cave and a bear came in, that emotional brain would jump into control. It would override, you've got no control of it, it would override your logical brain. And before you knew it, you were 20 meters that way away from the bear. So if you're trading and before you know it, you've missed your trades and you haven't done anything because fear has controlled you, or you've jumped out of trades prematurely because fear has controlled you. Before I knew it, I exited the trade. It's because that emotional brain jumps into control and it overrides everything. And it does that because it wants to keep you alive. If a snake came in here today, my emotional brain would override everything. And I actually have no control over what I would do. I would probably jump out that window with no control of it. It's really important for us as humans. You can't get rid of your emotional brain's natural responses, but you can start to manage it, and you can start to slowly, the more you manage it, the more you start telling your brain, actually, this is not a scary, life-threatening situation. Trading is not a scary, life-threatening situation. And slowly your body will go, actually, we don't have to overreact this time. And that's the power of, if the more I see a snake on a screen, the more my body's going to go, actually, I don't have to overreact so badly. So that's actually how you start to totally not get rid of it, but dissipate it and get rid of the impact of it and lose its power over time. Your body will recognize it doesn't need to overreact so badly. But in the meantime, there's not too much you can do about it, as in you can't get rid of it, but you can manage it. Okay, and we're going to go into that today. But understanding how fear works and why it works is really helpful for us to manage it while we're trading, because we're just working on some charts and we might lose some money, but the way our bodies are reacting and going into that fear response is really, it's complete overreaction. But our bodies do perceive the threat of the markets, the threat of being wrong, as something that it should trigger that emotional brain. And that's why you're kind of out of control. So if you're frustrated by this, it's not your fault. We're all like this as humans. So it's not that I have no fear. I still sometimes have fear, and that's out of my control, ultimately. The difference is I manage it and it doesn't affect my trading anymore. I can now trade in spite of that, and I can trade without fear ever being in control. So I'm going to show you how I started doing that, and this is a really powerful process. You need all 5 steps as part of the process. So really, just wait and go through all 5 steps and take notes and do start to implement it today. It is going to make the difference. Okay. So I made a few slides today to take us through the 5 steps. Let me just reorganize my screen so we can see it. Let's make myself small. And let's get to the okay, so 5 steps to managing fear. The step 1 is awareness. Now, don't write this off and say, oh, okay, well, that's pretty obvious. It's kind of not. What you're dealing with is a biological response. It's something built into our human makeup that your emotional brain is so powerful because it wants to keep you alive. That's the purpose of it, and that's why it is so powerful. And that's why when you're in danger, it completely overtakes you. Completely, you've got no control of that, and it will make you react and behave and do things because its purpose is to keep you alive. So it's really important to know what you're up against. Okay, that is what you are up against. And as I said, in trading, it's not a helpful response, but it's there because it's to keep us alive. Okay, so awareness is actually we'll call it a muscle in our brain that you have to work this muscle. You have to practice being aware of how you're feeling, because being aware that this fear or this doubt or that feeling is starting is the first step. You can't do any of this process. You can't manage fear unless you're aware of it. So a good way to start practicing this muscle is to, when you start trading, is to use your logical brain and keep thinking, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? Even talk to yourself. So as you start looking at the charts, just say, I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling good. I'm still feeling good. I'm still feeling good. It's as simple as that. And as soon as you're not feeling that confidence and not feeling just neutral and good, as soon as I'm not sure about this, that's the first trigger. I'm not sure. I'm not feeling good about this. I'm that pang. As soon as that starts, that's awareness. And you need to be able to start becoming aware of how you're feeling, and just speaking to yourself as you're trading is a good start. And maybe, your first few times that feeling came up and you didn't quite capture it because it completely overtook you. So don't get frustrated with yourself. You can't do this immediately. But if you are thinking to do this, you will actually be able to do it. If you're not even thinking about trying to be aware, you will not be aware, because that emotional brain is so powerful. Okay. So you can trigger awareness. You can kind of stop that brain by being aware. It's totally possible. It's actually quite easy, but you have to have the willpower and the want to be aware. And what this is actually doing, this is the first step, and why it's so important, is it's the first step that switches your brain from that emotional brain back to the executive brain, back to the thinking brain, so that you can be back in control. And that switch is really important. The emotional brain might still be fighting to protect you, but at least you're starting to have that switch, that biological switch from the emotional brain back to the thinking brain, the executive brain that puts you back in control. So it's a really important first step. After you've become aware of it, just acknowledge the feeling, like just speak it. I'm feeling fear. And it's really important to speak it. I think a lot of people just, it seems so simple. It's like, well, I don't want to, I feel silly talking to myself. No, it's really important to speak it, to just say it, because what this step does is it's the first step to start reducing the intensity of the feeling. It's going to, just by speaking it, or just by feeling it or thinking it, saying, I'm feeling like this, it starts to loosen or lessen the intensity of your logical brain. And your logical brain can, your emotional brain, and your emotional brain can get that first signal that, oh, maybe this isn't life or death. Maybe I don't have to overreact. And it starts sending it that first signal to just calm down a little bit, right? Okay. So speak the feeling you're having. I'm feeling doubtful now. I'm feeling fearful. Okay. So now we've lessened the intensity of the emotional brain. We've just reduced the situation a little bit, and we're starting to get to the point now where you can start to actually control the situation, control your feelings, and control and manage it. Okay. Step 3, journal. So many people, and this is really what sets profitable traders, successful traders apart from unsuccessful and non-profitable traders. They're willing to do what it takes. And so many people do not want to journal. You need to journal. And look here, maximum 90 seconds. It's short. This is a short journal. So you need a page or a journal nearby that you've written the date and the time. So when you go to your journal now, after you've acknowledged your feeling, write the time, because then you can match it to the trade you were in, and this can be really helpful when you're doing your weekly reviews, right? And what you want to journal is, what are you feeling? Just speak it. What was the setup? What triggered it? Was it the candle? I didn't like the candle. The trend line looked, not obvious. Just state the logical. What triggered this? What were you looking at when that feeling kind of came in? And now what's really important is you're going to write down what your plan of action is. And why this journaling is so important is two things. One, it takes you away from the situation. It removes you even further from that emotional brain kind of feeling like it needs to now jump into action and save you, basically save your life. It removes you from that further. By writing down, we're engaging the logical brain even more, okay? You're not writing with your emotional brain. Your emotional brain can't do that. Your logical brain helps you formulate letters and write. So now you're engaging your logical brain even more. So the writing of it is really important for that reason. And by writing down, the feeling, then what triggered it, that's going to be really helpful for your analysis later. But we're just trying to write now because we're just trying to engage the logical brain. And then by writing down the action, this is the second really important bit about journaling, is you're recommitting to just trading your rules, to just following your process. So you're going to write down, what are you going to do next? What is your plan? I'm going to go back. It's the right trade to take. I'm going to take the trade. Okay, so you've recommitted, and that is very powerful for your behavior and your logical brain staying in control. Okay. Step 4 is we're going to return to the charts. So you've had that kind of lessening the power of that logical, that emotional brain. We've moved away. We've written down. We've journaled. So now your logical brain is completely in control. You might still be feeling little pangs of worry and fear, but it's not in control anymore. Your logical brain is back in control. And that's why when you return to the charts, you have to stay on the logical path. Don't return to just random analysis, just looking at the charts, just, return with purpose. By returning with purpose, by returning to that action that you've just journaled, that plan you've just journaled, what will you do next? What step 4 is you just going to go and do that, okay? You're not returning to just thinking, because your emotional brain will jump back in. You need to stay logical and you need to stay on the rules, and this is a doing step. You need to now go and just do. You need to have decided that is your trade and just go into the trade, okay? So now you can actually fulfill what you wanted to do with your logical brain back in control. Even if you're still feeling fear, you've now started to manage it. You're now back in control. And this is a really powerful thing to be able to do, because now you can actually trade your rules. Step 5 is walk away. Now, if you're trading like a low time frame, so 2 minutes, I appreciate you can't walk away, but sit back, push your chair away from your computer, speak to yourself and say, I'm leaving this, I'm following my plan. I'm following my plan now. You want to protect your execution. Step 4 was the action step, right? You've actually executed your trade. Now you need to protect it. So if you're trading on a high time frame, so for example, I trade on a higher time frame, like 1 or 4 hours, sometimes the daily. I actually close my computer and I walk away. I go and do something else, and I never think about my trade. From this point, I'm done. I'm not thinking about my trade until it's time, till my rules tell me, okay, the next 4-hour candle is when you'll check, and maybe there'll be something to do. But I just walk away and I go and do something else. You don't have to worry. It's out of your control now. Trading is not in your control. Your processes, your actions are in your control, and you've done your job. That was your job. And by doing this process, you've also managed your fear so that you could just do your job. You don't have to worry about your trades. If you followed your rules, it will either win or it will lose. And it's out of your control. But it was worth, your strategy has told you it's worth taking that trade, and you've now executed. Job done. You should be really pleased and happy about that. Now you can there's nothing to do. Just wait. It will be what it will be, and then the next trade will come along. So let me get back here. And look, I think sometimes there are things in there, journaling, talking to yourself, that you might not feel like, oh, I don't want to do that. But this is the difference. These are the things that make the difference. Is, as a trader, you need to become a doer, a follower of your rules, and you need to be able to manage these emotions. So if you really want to stop having fear and doubt and your emotions being in control of your trading, and all you're left with is just frustration, constant frustration of, why could I not just follow my rules? It's because it's not your fault you can't follow your rules if you're not in control. When that, I call it the lizard brain, but it's known as the amygdala, but it's the emotional brain. When that gets into control, you've got no say. Okay, it is so powerful because it wants to keep you alive. So we need to start following these processes, and they are simple because we're dealing with a very simple but powerful thing in your brain that just wants to keep you alive. And it's going to take quite a simple step-by-step process, talking to yourself, journaling, and then doing. It's very simple things, because this is just the basics of being a human, and we're trying to do something far more advanced, which is trading. And your poor emotional brain just doesn't realize that it's not being helpful. It thinks it's being very helpful. Okay, so I'd love you to start trying to put this process into your daily routine. Start talking to yourself while you're trading. Call out what you're feeling, even if it's the good things. Okay, if you're calling out, I'm feeling confident, that's great, because what it's doing is just keeping a connection to your thinking brain, your executive brain, so that when the negative feelings, fear and doubt, come in, you're still in connection with your logical brain, and that's when you can trigger the awareness and you can trigger this whole process and start managing this. So thanks for joining. I'm looking forward to hearing if this is helpful. If you put it into practice, let me know. If you're struggling with it, let me know. But it makes a real difference when you can start to be in control of your fear and doubt and manage it and trade, even though you're having those feelings. That's really powerful. So I'll see you next week on the Trader's Journey.